The greatest sacrifices are the ones never spoken aloud. They're hidden in an old tin box under a bed, in crumpled tips after a long day, or in a brilliant career voluntarily set aside. These are the secret funds built not with money, but with a parent's boundless love. Today, I invite you to listen with me to 3 true stories about these secret funds, built from that very boundless love. Together, we will discover that sometimes, the greatest inheritance our parents leave us isn't money, but the opportunities they silently created for us. Story number 1. The Pact in the Tin Box. Elena Ramirez lived between 2 worlds. By day, she was an invisible phantom, cleaning up the glamour of others in offices of glass and steel. The acrid smell of cleaning chemicals clung to her clothes, her skin, becoming her signature scent. At night, in her small Boyle Heights apartment, her world shrank to just her son, Leo, and a backache that threatened to split her in two. She had a pact with herself, a vow sealed in an old, dented Bustelo coffee tin. It wasn't just a college fund. It was a ticket for her son to enter the very world she could only clean. Her sacrifice was not an easy choice. It was a daily battle. It was walking past the Mexican bakery, the familiar scent pulling her in, only for her to swallow her craving and walk on. It was when the soles of her work shoes gaped open, every step feeling like a stone digging into her foot, and she chose glue over a new pair. Every crumpled dollar bill was smoothed flat, not by her fingers, but by sheer will and hope, before being placed in the box. Leo at 17 didn't understand that battle. He only saw the scarcity. He felt a surge of anger when his friends showed off their latest gadgets. One afternoon, frustrated that he couldn't find a hammer, he rummaged everywhere until his hand brushed against something cold under the bed. He pulled it out, a plain tin box. He shook it. The rustle of paper money, curiosity, mixed with a selfish flicker of hope, made him pry it open. But what he saw inside left him speechless. It wasn't a treasure. It was hundreds of ones, 5s, 10s, old and worn, stacked with an obsessive neatness. Tucked among them was a picture of a dress he knew his mother had admired for months through a shop window. And then a small slip of paper with 4 words in a shaky hand: for Leo's future. A lump formed in Leo's throat. His heart felt like it was being squeezed. It wasn't money. It was the pastries his mother didn't eat, the shoes she didn't buy, the night she came home gasping for breath. His future was built from the broken pieces of his mother's life. The following spring, holding his acceptance letter from UCLA, Leo didn't run. He walked, knelt before his mother, placed the letter in her calloused hands and said through his tears, "Mom, it wasn't me, we did it." From the big city, our story moves to the hills of Appalachia, where a town was dying and hope was a luxury. There, another mother was fighting a battle of her own. Story number 2. The Gamble in the Recipe Box. The Miner's Diner was Sarah Jenkins's stage. Her smile was the perfect mask, hiding the hardships of a single mother. People loved her, they left tips out of habit. They didn't know they were funding the biggest gamble of Sarah's life. Every night, under the dim yellow glow of a single bulb, she didn't count money. She was counting hope. Every crumpled dollar from her apron was emptied out, not to pay the electric bill, not to fix the leaking roof before the coming winter. They were tucked away in an old wooden box, one that once held her grandmother's recipes, but now held the future of her daughter Emily. Emily's escape fund. Emily had a gift. Her hands could draw the very soul of the barren hills. Sarah knew that if Emily stayed here, that talent would wither and die just like the town. So she bet everything on an art camp in New York City. The day Emily was accepted was the same day she refused to go. Looking at the tuition fee, Emily cried and said, "I can't, Mom. We can't afford it." The words were a knife to Sarah's heart. All those years of scrimping, all those sacrifices, were they to end in surrender from the very child she loved? That night Sarah said nothing. She placed the wooden box on the table. A dry click echoed as she opened the lid, and then a cascade of small bills poured out. Hundreds, thousands of dollars, saved from countless smiles and thank you come agains. Sarah looked her daughter straight in the eye, her voice, for the first time, not warm but trembling with intensity. This isn't money, Emily. These are the bitter cold winters I walked home. This is the leaking roof I chose not to fix. This is my dream of being a nurse that I buried in this very box. I bet everything on you. Don't let me lose. That summer in New York, Emily's first prize-winning piece was an oil painting. It wasn't a landscape. It was a close-up of her mother's hands, resting on her old diner apron. A masterpiece painted with tips and a mother's loving gamble. Sacrifice isn't always about material want. Sometimes the most painful sacrifice is giving up the very person you were meant to become. Story number 3, the greatest work. In the hallowed halls of Harvard, the name Katherine Hayes was once a rising star. Her doctoral dissertation was lauded. A prestigious professorship was waiting for her. Her future was one of lectures and books that would change the way people saw history. Then Ben was born. A brilliant boy, but one who struggled with severe dyslexia. Katherine's world collapsed. The ancient libraries were replaced by therapy offices. Academic debates were replaced by hours of grueling patience, teaching her son to tell the difference between two letters. The academic world looked at her with a mix of pity and incomprehension. She had done the unthinkable. She gave it all up. She became a part-time tutor, a shadow of her former self. They said she had given up, that she had wasted her talent. They were wrong. Katherine wasn't surrendering. She was making a strategic investment, a project more silent and ambitious than any dissertation. She lived frugally, pouring all her knowledge and money into building Ben's launchpad. It was an investment fund not of money, but of time, intellect, and an ironclad faith that her son was not broken. Years passed. From that launchpad, Ben didn't just learn to read. He learned to think differently. He became a young inventor, creating a groundbreaking app. The day he stood on a grand stage to accept an award, he looked down at his mother in the front row and said, his voice clear and strong, "People know my mother as a scholar who gave up her career. They're wrong. My mother is a brilliant historian who taught me that the past shapes the future. And she decided that her greatest work wouldn't be a book about the past, but my future." In that moment, Katherine Hayes didn't cry. She simply smiled, a quiet, bursting pride. The greatest project of her life had finally been published to the world. A tin box, a recipe box, an investment account. 3 testaments to one unchanging truth. A parent's love is a silent pact, a gamble with no regrets, a great work built from countless sacrifices. As you listen to these stories, perhaps something familiar echoes in your own heart. A memory of a meal your mom cooked when she was exhausted, the sight of your dad's worn-out shoes, or the times your parents stood quietly behind you, acting as the launchpad for your own dreams. That love often goes unspoken. It lives in the small, persistent actions day after day. If today's stories have touched your heart, I invite you to do something small. Take a moment to remember a memory, an act of sacrifice from your parents for which you may have never said thank you. And if you're willing, we would be honored if you shared that memory in the comments below. Every story shared is a way for us to honor the silent heroes in our lives. Thank you for listening. Always cherish the secret boxes your parents have set aside for you.